We'll bring the Berlin Select Board meeting to order for April 1st. Open session public meetings are subject to being videotaped. Your image and voice may be recorded. We're calling this to order at 7 o'clock. The first thing on our agenda is the minutes of March 25th. Move to approve.
So moved.
Second. Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. General public comment. Seeing nothing. So the first thing we have on the agenda under hearings, appointments, and presentations is a visit from our electricity aggregation pricing with the Energy Committee.
Hello.
Hi.
I guess I'm designated myself to speak unless you all want to come up. We'll get organized in a moment.
Pull up a few more chairs if you'd like to.
You want to crowd around the little table?
We'll
That's
do
good.
some-
It is a tiny table, sorry.
So the purpose here today is that the contract for the municipal aggregation is coming up, and our friends at Colonial have gone out for indicative pricing and bid. And what we wish to discuss with you today is the results of that bid and give a recommendation of what we feel that the community should do. So we do have, like I mentioned, some indicative pricing, and it is extremely favorable. To quote these guys back here, some of the best that they've seen in the recent marketplace. I'd also like to point out that due to the municipal aggregation, residents of the town of Berlin were able to weather some pretty significant energy shocks, both through COVID as well as international tensions such as Ukraine. Our fixed rate has managed to save a lot of money, especially when some of those rates have spiked into the 30s, correct? 33? Today, the indicative pricing that we would like to recommend to you is on the order of 12.867 cents. And if you were to take the rate that we had, which was 12.167, that is our current one, and you were to just apply a simple compound interest to that, this new rate would be a 1.8% annual increase, which is extremely good. I think that anyone would say that to beat inflation by that much, as well as, you know, any normal adder that you'd see or extender on a contract like that is extremely good. By point of reference, that 12 cents that we had in 2021, if you were to buy the same, use that money, the same thing, it would cost you 14 in the current environment. Because of the shocks that we managed to weather, we are recommending the longest term, which is 36 months. Again, that will pay off overall because in general, prices do tend to rise, and we are in a period of pretty extensive energy as well as just general consumer pricing variance. So we are recommending a longer term. Additionally, we'd like to recommend to you that we go with a 100% option to meet the Massachusetts requirements, especially because we are in the recommending a longer term. That requirement does increase annually, even though we would make it under almost, you know, all of these, but we would like to be meeting that sooner rather than later. We have a history in this community of being on the forefront of being 100% green with the municipal aggregation, and we'd like to keep that. We were reminded today in our earlier meeting, we've been doing this since 2017. Previously, we were doing short-term 6-month type of things, and then we went in 2018 to a 3-year, 2021, and now we're discussing this year. These rates would take effect in November 1st of 2024, so we do have a little bit of play left in the current period. To give an example, the current projected basic service by National Grid during the months, and this would be for August 24 to January 31, 25. They're predicting a 16.6 cent per kilowatt hour rate. And during the months of February through July 31, it would be 14.4. So this rate would, prior to any, consideration of an adder, would pretty substantially beat that rate, and we would be looking at, what did I hear, about $1.20 per,
Well, that's with the adder.
okay, with the adder. So we've talked about the adder a couple of times. There's been some confusion that was generated by me. That we went back and forth, both canceling and seeming to uncancel the conversation we had. We did want to talk through the adder with you and give you an opportunity to kind of educate you the possibilities with that. There was clear guidance from DOER of the uses of those adders, and I'll invite you guys to talk about this in a little bit. But we did invite Colonial to a previous meeting and to discuss what is allowable and what is not. The short answer of what is allowable is think salaries. What is not allowable is actually buying stuff. So expense versus capital maybe, or salary versus things. So we do have some ideas that we would like for you to consider about potential uses for the adder, and I just wanted to go over them briefly. Ultimately, we do not have to necessarily make a decision today. Should you wish to wait, the consequence would be additional accrual of funds in our current account, but there's no imperative need to do that. We could potentially undo this at a future time. They do need 30 days after notice to suspend the adder, because there is some notification requirements that need to happen. So we've come up with really 4 uses that we would like for you to consider. 2 of which are kind of simple, straightforward. The other 2 would require a little bit more work, or maybe a little more imagination. The first of which is we would like you to consider potentially working through CMRPC to work with adjacent communities to fund a shared energy policy or sustainability manager. With our portions, we could be contributing some of the adder funds to that. There is, and I've mentioned this in an upcoming, we'll be mentioning this in an upcoming coffee talk, but the Green Community Program is evolving into a new program called the Climate Leader Communities. And it is focused on sustainability more than just straight energy reduction. That's one of the reasons why we'd like you to consider a sustainability manager, because one of the goals, and I believe our team will be coming to you to ask us to opt in, but is to create a climate neutral plan for the community as well as a sustainment policy for the community. We believe that having a professional assisting with that would be helpful. The second potential use would be to pay for engineering assessments to produce shovel-ready grant proposals. I think most people have experiences serving on boards in the community. Sometimes that you find yourself caught in a catch-22 where the only time you're eligible for a grant is when you have something that is already ready to go and you don't have any funds to get it to the all ready to go stage. So we believe that this could be one of the ways that we could do that. Finally, and these are clearly in the scope of the intent, but we'd like to use adder funds to market the municipal aggregation program in general. We do a couple of mail drops, but we would like to increase the visibility. Just by way of information, and I mentioned this in our meeting earlier, but last time I checked, there were 900 meters on the program. There are now 1,193. Our advantageous pricing has clearly attracted members of the community to take advantage of this. But I think we could probably do better. I know that the community has grown since the last time we've gone out of this, and that might be an option for us, is to do some marketing. And then finally, there's an evergreen question that comes up having to do with the difference between supply and the actual delivery costs. If you look at your bill, there are 2 pieces, one of which is the municipal aggregation program, which is our fixed rate. And then there's the price that goes into the pockets of our electric company and Grin to actually pay for their delivering that energy to your community. We'd like to potentially fund some educational material to explain that difference. One of the things that I get through the Energy Committee mailbox is this question over again. Peg, you're nodding your heads. I know you've received this. I've seen this on Berlin Neighbors Connect on multiple times. It is a perennial source of confusion in the community, and I think we could do something to that. These last two are probably not going to take a large percentage of the funds that we manage to accrue. That's why we would like to consider some of those more extensive options. So we're looking for your guidance on this tact. I think we'd fair to say that we can make this work either way, but these are some of our goals that we would like to do and how we see that program as potential, or that adder program as potentially furthering those. You guys have anything? I invite you up. This is our Colonial Power team. Is there anything that we missed?
Nothing next, only thing is we're looking for a date that this indicative price, that we could get final pricing. So Kristen could sign off on something. That's the hope tonight, to get a final pricing date, located at some point in the future.
As far as the Energy Committee goes, we're agreed on the rate. And again, I can't give the exact because this is proprietary information, but for the purposes of this public hearing, we shall refer to them as supplier number 3. It is the retail supply through the purchase of National Wind RECs, which RECs stand for Renewable Energy Credits. It meets the Massachusetts requirement plus 38%. The term would be November 1, 2024 through October 31, 2027. That is a period of 36 months. The rate that we are seeing in the indicative pricing is 0.12867, so 12.867 cents. And again, we don't need to make a decision on the adder, but we would like to receive guidance from the select board on how you wish to proceed with that. Thank you.
Through the chair, just a quick question for Colonial. It's been a few years since I did this, but if I remember, when you do have to move fast on this, so you'd be asking the select board to authorize me to sign off on the pricing once it comes in, and you're expecting it to be at this rate.
In and around it, the market's moved up slightly from here, but
Okay.
not substantially, about a mil or two. So looking at this rate, it might be at 13, maybe in that
Okay.
range. That's what we've seen as a slight increase,
Okay.
but nothing substantial. I do expect it to be similar.
Yeah, and Kristen, the pricing would come in at 11 o'clock in the morning. We aim to have it over to you by noon, and then we need a signature, a selection by 3 p.m. so the supplier can set their hedge.
Okay, perfect. I kind of vaguely remember that. I did this back in like 15, so I'm like trying to remember. So
Brittany?
Just a reminder, we can't hear anyone speaking.
In the chairs? Oh, okay. So if you want to be heard, you'll have to come
But
up
we
here.
did not hear anything she said.
Okay.
Thank you.
So just to recap, there is a time sensitive component to this. Once the select board makes a decision that there would be a final bid that would come in at 11 a.m. that would need to be signed by 3 p.m. that same day, and that the overall price has moved up slightly to approximately 13, but we will know when the final pricing has been received. And the question before the board is whether to authorize Kristen to sign on their behalf and enter into this agreement.
thank you.
Questions?
Um,
Nice summary.
the recommendation that you have is, of course, not the lowest number on that spreadsheet,
No, it is not.
which is fine. Could you explain the difference, and you might, if you're gonna answer, come forward, but this is my lack of knowledge. The standard retail electricity supply that just meets the mass requirement is a little bit cheaper than retail supply through the purchase of National Wind RECs. And so just what's the benefit we get by paying, and it's, I mean, tiny amounts. So people who can't see the spreadsheet, we're not talking about a large amount, but what is the benefits we get by going with the next line down?
Well, one of the key benefits, and it's in keeping with our status as a green community, is using 100% green option. As opposed to I won't say less, but it's not funded entirely through a wind or a renewable energy source.
Mark Capitone, Colonial Power, 5 Mount Royal Ave, Marlboro, Mass. And that's exactly it. This is 100% renewable product. So you're paying for those renewable energy certificates on top of the power. That's why it's slightly higher.
And in keeping with that, Berlin has been doing 100% green for the life of the program. And I would I would be perturbed if we just chose to
Right.
to break that streak.
And then, there were a lot of numbers on the spreadsheet. I like spreadsheets. It's taken me a while to even like write my brain up. The yellow squares in the upper corner are sort of what if I didn't have an aggregation contract and basically just
Yes, sir.
got whatever National Grid assigned me at the time.
Yep.
It'd be all right. So that,
And that spec rate is for a year.
right, and they changed their numbers.
Correct.
Because this will, if we do the 3-year contract, this locks us into this rate plus an inflation adjustment, I believe, for the next 3 years, right? Or is it just this rate?
No inflation adjustment, it'll be that'd be a fixed rate, other than a change in law. If someone got changed that affected this price, it would have to be documented and so
So-
forth, but we'd come to you. That's the only way it would change.
That's an important point, though. You are outrunning inflation by keeping it fixed.
Yep.
You're automatically getting that benefit passed on to the ratepayer.
Correct statement.
That's one of the few why we can do this as a municipality and others can't.
I don't have other questions, but I would be ready to motion if other ones are.
Do you have any questions?
No, I mean, I just, Tim, you were spot on with the market program in general, because you saw the
Oh.
emails flying.
Yep.
Why is my electric bill $8,000? Well, here, and I would even go out and say, page 2,
Mm.
right here, everyone's in, do you opt out? So I don't think that people understand that it's this rate plus a little more to get it to your house.
Correct.
And I think that's what people are missing. So the more education that we can have for our folks in town, and those are great numbers that, you're up to round up peg math, you're almost up to 1,200 meters in
Yeah.
town. Do we have any idea the number of potential meters in town? Ish? Oh, she's smiling.
I know, we don't have all that. I mean,
Okay,
The problem,
I know you have to come up.
So the problem is the Department of Public Utility currently will not give us all the meters. They'll only tell us what basic services and what's in the aggregation. Third-party supply, they are coming soon, so we should be able to get that to you. Hopefully, we'll be able to deliver, Kristen, those numbers that you're looking for to get you a better idea how many people might be out there that you're looking for.
Mhm.
And we'll certainly get those over this week, Kristen, to you.
Great.
But unfortunately, there's gonna be a block of those customers that are on competitive supply. We just don't have access to those numbers.
Yeah, so let's break that down. You've got people on the basic, you got people that went out and got their own deal, and you got people on the aggregation.
Yeah.
That's your sum total.
Correct.
So, and I want to make one other point. People can opt out whenever they want. So if this deal becomes not financially attractive to them, which I highly doubt at this rate,
I agree.
but say it does, they can bounce out. They can go get their own competitive bid. They can go on the standard rate if it becomes more, subject to like 30 days, right?
Exactly, the next meter read, and the one thing I do want to say is, so going to the yellow box, let's just say, for whatever reason, Mr. Putin came to his senses and it all went to kumbaya for 6 months and the basic service rate was 8 cents. I'm just making this up. Everyone in town can opt out of the program. 6 months later, he starts dropping bombs all through Europe and it goes to 33 cents. Everyone can come back to this program without fee or penalty. So what you're really delivering is a choice that
Mhm.
does not exist in the marketplace or did not before you had the program. So for me, it's all about the choices that people have. And you're fortunate enough that you had the vision to start the program because there was a lot of communities that got held out during that huge spike. It's almost 2 years ago now when he invaded Ukraine and it's 33 cent power that following winter. So unfortunately, you guys are in the business, so you know better than I. You don't get any benefits for doing what you did because most people didn't have to pay the 33 cents in town. But I can tell you it went from around 900. So almost a 50% increase in your rolls. So people were paying attention.
Mm,
And-
Before the COVID, it was like 950 meters. Now you're almost at 1,200.
mhm.
And we did get a certain amount of luck, because if we would have done a 24-month rate, we would have been doing this process in a very hostile environment. So again, that's why I urge you for a 36-month rate.
Are you looking at, so for your options of, working with MRPC to get, CMRPC to do the sustainability manager and then potentially having someone being out to do the grants, being alert for grants and shovel ready, and then the marketing program. Are you looking at a division of that money, or are you looking just for us to go with one?
I don't think we should go solo on anything.
Okay.
Just because we don't have the scope. We do have the funds, but we want to be able to sustain this position and not do a, up down type of thing as
Mhm.
we expend our funds. So I would hope that it would be nice if we could see our neighbors and hopefully they're thinking the same way. And if not, maybe we can socialize a little bit to get them thinking that way and share the resource.
Chris, I just have a point and a question. The first point goes back to when you're talking about you can opt in or opt out at any time. One thing that I ran into when I managed this in my former community, though, was if people have gone out and procured it competitively on their own, there may be some type of penalty
Yeah.
for opting out of that supplier.
Yeah.
So before they opt into our program and cancel with their current contract, they probably want to give that supplier a call and just make
Yeah.
sure they're not locked in for a certain period of time. And there's not going to be a penalty on that supplier's end. There's no penalty on our end.
Correct.
But I just wanted to make that point because we did hit that a few times.
Yeah.
Well stated and very important to put it in there. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
That's
I-
perfectly stated. too.
Take advantage of the camera while you have it. I
Yeah,
figured.
contract is a contract is a contract.
Yep.
So,
Correct.
No, you're absolutely correct. On the third party supply, it's very important to make sure you don't, before you leave that, you make sure you don't get hit with a fee or penalty.
however, if you're bouncing from the basic service to us and vice versa,
Yeah.
that is not a problem.
That is true.
Very good point. And then the only other question I had on the adder was, is the Energy Committee recommending we continue with the adder and use it for these purposes? Or is this for the adder funds we have accrued to date?
So we are split right now. We actually took a vote at a previous hearing to suspend. We brought these guys in, heard some of the options, and we waffled.
Mhm.
So at this point, I don't know if we have taken a formal vote, so I'm just going to say we are split at this point and seeking guidance of the select board.
At this point in the contract, you might as well just run it out. Then you don't have to have a rate change. And with the new contract, you can make
Yeah.
a decision for November.
What
Doesn't need
we,
to be decided now, though.
yeah, what we could do is, we don't have this on our agenda, but we could definitely do it in a future agenda, come back and provide you with a fixed decision. That, I have an idea. I would speak for myself what I would like to do, but we have not taken a vote.
So as I remember, you did have to come back to talk about the adder with the select board years ago.
We've done this a couple
Yeah.
times, yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
probably the only one who remembers it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, you and I think.
you and I.
That's right.
So I just, then, so it would be, we'd have to probably support you and
So,
vote
yeah,
to-
so here are your options. You could say tonight, we're done with the adder. And in 30 days, approximately one billing cycle, we have notification, it would end. You could defer a decision and let it go through the current contract. And then have the Energy Committee report back to you by November 1. Or you could make a decision that we like what we heard tonight and we wish to maintain it. But again, those are your three, or you could actually defer altogether. Those are your four options tonight.
well,
If we do change, there is a step, we need to notify the community if there's ever a rate change. So we'd have to put something in the paper, public notice, things like that, just.
Yeah.
Not a whole mailing, but something would have to be to notify, just so that you're
Right.
aware.
And if you suspend it, of course, it would be a notice of going down. So
Correct.
most people are not going to be tense about that.
I guess my next question would be, what kind of funds are we talking about that we've accrued?
Amy, do you know off the top of your head?
I looked at it the other day, actually, it's about $81,000.
Yeah, it's a substantial amount of money because it's been accruing for multiple
And,
years.
and with the things that you, the four things that you listed,
Correct.
are those, can
Those-
we afford those with $80,000?
They're aspirational at this point. I couldn't tell you definitively one way or the other.
At least for a little while, maybe.
For a little while, yeah. And I mean, you still have, what is it, 2,200 or 2,200 a month approximately coming in. So again, that's part of the reason back to Peg's earlier question about going it alone. I don't think we could sustain that alone. But if we had some partners, I think we probably could.
Well, and through the chair, here's a neat idea. So the Community Preservation Act Committee is doing a sort of similar fractional position for a housing coordinator with Central Mass Regional Planning Commission in that they get 4 hours a week. And I know that's small, but it's also small on cash because I believe it's a little bit less than $10,000 a year. And Scott, you can, or about $10,000 a year. The first year was grant funding, but you're allocating or asking for 20 grand at town meeting for the next 2 years. So even if you were to get somebody who could work a fractional amount of time combined with other communities, that might be an option. And CMRPC is very interested in regional services right now. They've grown immensely in their staffing. And I think it's certainly worth having a conversation with them to see if other communities might be interested.
Because at this point, say we decide, no, we're done. Okay, we don't want to play this game. We would probably drain down the account a little bit through some of these marketing type of things. We could potentially, I still think that the shovel ready thing might drain it down some as well. But at that point, we would have to talk to these guys about how to return funds, I'm assuming, because we wouldn't want to keep it indefinitely and we would have to, either subsidize a rate or something like that.
Most likely that would be what we advise.
So again, we have time and we're really seeking your advice.
Okay. Do you have an opinion, either one of them?
Yeah, I think it's worth keeping the adder through at least November 1st.
Mhm.
Right.
And then having a chance for Energy Committee to have a formal discussion and come back to us with a recommendation about whether after November 1st, with the new contract taking effect, we continue with it or not.
I agree.
Okay.
Ditto.
Okay.
All right. And are you guys in a position to make a recommendation to Colonial?
Yes, if I may.
Sure.
I would like to do a motion that we do a 36-month contract with supplier number 3, who I don't know who it is, and it doesn't matter because I think it's the right one. And it's recommended by you folks for the retail supply through purchase of National Wind Rex, which is again the recommendation from the
Yes, sir.
Energy Committee.
I'll second that.
Okay. Anything else?
Through the chair, it would also be to authorize the town administrator to execute that pricing contract.
Okay.
Right. And go ahead.
I just want to say, right now, it's supplier number 3. We want to have the low bidder, so it could be supplier number 4, could be supplier number 2.
Okay.
It's whoever the low bidder is on that date, which I'm sure Kristen was going to do, but you mentioned supplier number 3, so I don't want you to be locked into that supplier.
Okay, Yep.
Okay.
Okay, yes. So the lowest bidder for a 36-month contract on the 100% green
National Wind, Rex.
Rex, yep.
And recommending that
And recommended we keep the adder through November 1st.
the town administrator sign for
Right,
us.
and the town administration.
Got it.
Eventually they'll tell me what I'm doing.
All right. So do I hear a second?
I'd like you to repeat it.
We'll fly it on one of those plain banners.
I'll second it.
Okay. Then all in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you.
very much.
Well done.
Thank you.
Well done.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for all your hard work.
Well, Fred.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Oh, we have one,
All right.
we have to adjourn our meeting.
Ah.
Okay.
We do have it posted jointly for this,
Yeah,
so
we
you
have
can do it through here.
So
Yep.
we had actually put an abatement, whatever you want to call it, but I would like to adjourn the meeting of the April 1st Energy Committee. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned at 7:30. Thank you very much.
You run the most timeliest meetings. You kill me.
I know.
Thank you. Mhm.
All right. Come on down, Fred.
Hello.
love you so much.
Can you top that?
No, every time I come here, I can't tell. So actually I got a few things for you tonight. So for our monthly, our month of March, actually it wasn't too bad. We actually did more time with hazard trees than we had in the past. We're really kind of at the point where we're almost caught up on all the previous lists we had. We've started new ones already. So at some point, probably in the next couple months, we'll be doing a tree hearing to start all over again. It's a constant battle with potholes. The guys were out again today. We got troublesome ones that Kristen's aware of up at the West Street Railroad tracks. Ongoing, they fill them with dirt, they come out. So that's just a constant, can't say it. One thing that we did actually, it was pretty cool during the month was, we hosted a class that Maya put on, Hotworks training. We had no idea, I had no idea that it was required, since we became an OSHA state. So it's basically anything to do welding, cutting, grinding, anything that can produce fire. And it turned out really good. We had DPWs from several communities. They came and attended it. And it was a 4-hour block of instruction. Everyone got a lot of good information out of it. So it was really good. So when we got a certification card. So now if we have a fire in the garage, we have no excuse. But it was very good. I was glad that my,
One, right?
yeah. So I was glad they offered it up.
Yeah.
And we got back into doing some roadside mowing on the rainy days, trying to get that caught up. The worst thing was our Bobcat chipper, the new one, just went in the shop about 2 weeks ago because we're having an issue with the DEF system. I don't know if you're aware what the DEF is. It's this new thing that they install on diesel engines to make them more efficient, cleaner burning. It's supposed to burn hotter, cleaner. It's an absolute pain in the butt. 2 of our 6-wheel dump trucks, we've already had issues with them because they don't want to regen and they just clog up the filters and puts it in limp mode. When it goes in limp mode, you can't do anything with the truck. That's what happened with the chipper. So that's back in the shop. Hopefully it's going to be a warranty cover because it's still within the time frame. That's pretty much all that's been going on with highway. Public buildings, we had the fire extinguishers all inspected. The library signs that were ordered did arrive today, so those will be going up fairly shortly, along with a couple new handicap signs that are faded here as well at the library office. I don't know if you guys have seen it, the tile floors are done over in the police department, the fire department side. The only thing they messed up on was, so the fire department got red and white tile scatter. The police was supposed to get blue and white, and when I came in that night, it was all white. So there was the one problem we had with that company. But actually it didn't come out too bad. There were some complaints about the color. It's like, you get a new floor, take care of it. A couple of the offices received new carpet tile. Actually looks really good. It's a little more energetic. Hopefully it brings a positive vibe when they're working. The highway garage. We actually had an issue months ago with the heater. For one, we got 3 heaters in the back. One of them went down early on in the winter. We had 4 Seasons come out, take a look at it. They did a bunch of work on it. Actually cost us just under $10,000 for the repairs because of course it's like 6 years old. The warranty was for 5. And as luck would have it, it went down again. So Viking Mechanical is going to take a look into it as they get time. We're used to being without it, so when they get time, they'll come back and look at it. So that was a big expense on the highway end. The 1870N, I actually did get the invoice that I mentioned on the slip. That came today. That I believe was just over 10,000. It was like 10,100. And I can actually forward the work order to you. There was a lot of things that they found in the basement. Was a lot of the controls were actually installed way back when over some of the vents, the steam vents. So they were constantly getting rotted out. The electrical components were failing. So they actually relocated a lot of that. One of the radiators, which we can never understand why the heat never worked in Sandra's office. There were 2 radiators in there. They were both disconnected at the floor level. So they reconnected those. They went around and put all new vents on the radiators. So now they're working properly. Changed the thermostats. So now they're all working the way they should. They found one in the old police department that was similar to the one upstairs, had no time clock on it. No one knew how to run it. It never ran. They too found that cut off at the floor level. So they removed a bunch of stuff that was just confusing a lot of people, thinking they were working and they weren't working. And they did a boiler cleaning because of the oil. which they did note. I asked them to note exactly
Thank you.
the condition of the oil. So they had to do a burner cleaning. This would be the second one for the season. Which I'm sure we're probably gonna need another one once heating season's done.
Mhm.
So that one was a big hit. I don't think I had an amount for that one.
Fred, can I
Um,
jump in on you for a second on that one?
Sure.
So this is one of the challenges we face with procurement. And when we have to go out to bid and we have to change companies from a company that we've worked with for a long time that we're comfortable with to a lower company, a company that bids lower. And unfortunately, we have had some issues. We have reached out to them. And it's basically very close to the end of the season right now. To go back out to bid doesn't make a whole lot of sense at this point, but we have documentation. And I'm not going to publicly disparage anybody, but we have documentation. So next year when we go out to bid, should this same vendor come in as the low bidder, we now have grounds to not use them again. Because we have had to do multiple cleanings in 3 boilers now or 2?
3.
Because of potential oil quality issues, which are difficult to document, but the people who have come to clean the machines have documented the likely possibility of the oil not being of the highest quality. So unfortunately, that's something that we've had to deal with on our end, but now we certainly have grounds to change that moving forward.
Good.
And the last thing I have is, we're still dealing with the birds over there in the fire department. I was talking with Chief McClellan. You've seen it. So last month we installed a bird deterrent, an electronic bird deterrent. It has worked a little bit. It all depends on whether or not they keep the bay doors closed on the backside of the building, because obviously they're coming in from the tree line. So the chief reiterated again tonight, make sure the doors are closed. We did spray a deterrent up there as well today. Ken did it. And as of the end of the day, there was one left inside. So between that and the discs, the silver discs that are hanging now as well, we're hoping that eventually to get a hold of that.
I was getting close to authorizing the use of BB guns, so I'm glad that that might be a better option.
Yes.
Look at me. They're destroying the equipment.
Have you talked to Maddie at all for Concom, see if she has any ideas?
No, I thought about seeing if we could borrow her bird nets, but they got to be up high enough.
They're just flying through.
Yeah, well, they were
Non-stopping.
a house.
Are they the red?
No.
Oh, they're nesting, aren't they? Are they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I forget the name. A house sparrow, I think is what it is.
A wren.
Yeah, they're invasive.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah.
So we are working on that. We do have the lift for the week. So Ken's gonna continue with the spraying and so we can do to combat them.
Yeah.
Pretty much that's all I have for our month.
I was just curious if it was highway who fixed the pole between the drive at the post office and the road.
Yes.
Yay! I went over that every time I left.
Well, the problem with that was I saw it one day when I was leaving the post office and, it was mentioned to our guys and they were like, well, we didn't know whose it was because it's,
Right.
partially here and here. It's a hole, from a
Right,
hole,
Right,
I think the
didn't know who to
majority of it
ask.
was in the street.
right.
Oh, everyone calls us. Just call us.
Well, I'd
Oh.
get home and then I'd forget about it, but,
Yeah, it took a while. I think it was
Yeah.
well over 2 months.
well, that's great, know.
Because it was right where the tires came through.
right.
Um,
And I was wondering if you could, or is there anybody online? No.
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 that's
Well, maybe for the
important.
people here in the audience, just go over again, like where we are with the South Street Bridge.
So as of today, I had reached out to Olivia again, to see if I can get a cost estimate, because the last time we talked, that's what she was gonna send me. I hadn't gotten one yet. And she hadn't responded to the email. So that's where we're at for that, because ideally, they were gonna try to get it out after our meeting with conservation, that day. The day after, they were gonna submit it to MassDOT for approval. And they were hoping to get the bid out between April and May to see if we can get a fall construction time. I haven't heard anything back from that. I do have a work ticket in with National Grid because they want to see if we can get the wires moved over the bridge, swap to the other side, or pulled as tight as they can. So when they bring the crane in for the structure, that wouldn't be a problem. We did get written permission from the property owner adjacent to the bridge to put out the booms and sill fence, which was requested by Concom at our hearing. So
So we're
well-
still talking about fall, late fall,
yeah,
before the,
Ye-
before it's
actually
travelable
done. Yeah.
again.
Um,
Okay.
And because ideally it was only going to be 2 months. If it went to term,
Mm.
it was going to be closed for 2 months. So we can figure at least 2 months worth of construction work.
Hmm.
And the way the bridge is going to be done, so they're going to leave the dry stack walls. They don't want to interrupt more than they have to. Behind the wall, they're going to be driving pilings down in, which will support 100% of the bridge. So they are going to put a concrete cap back on top where it sits now, but there's going to be no weight on it. So basically the walls and the wing walls are just there to keep the material from coming back into the bridge.
Fred, if you hear back from Olivia and they're having any issues with DOT waiting a long time or not getting responsiveness, let me know because we can always reach out through our legislators.
Okay. And I figured they were, because they do a lot of work with VHB, MassDOT.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm actually surprised that it wasn't just like slipped through.
Could be a busy time of year, maybe.
Yeah. But we still, unless they did it for us, we still have to submit for the construction phase of the small bridge grant.
Right.
And that usually opens up, I think, between April, May, and awarded in June, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that once we go through that, we got 100% of phase one. I'm hoping again for 100% of phase two, because that would be a maximum of 500. And the projected is around 7 something for the bridge.
Okay.
Had it been done a couple years ago, it would have been covered almost
Yeah.
by the state.
And VHB is preparing that application for the second round of the small.
I
bridge
believe they are.
funding.
Yep.
Any other questions? No,
No, hold on.
no, just one, just one.
Weather stripping.
Weather stripping. So as
You want me
Was
to
that
tell 'em?
like the bad question to ask?
well, no. So I reached out several times
You did,
again
you did.
to them to I forget his name, Coldplay. It was getting nothing, no response, no nothing, crickets. So I had reached out to Kristen with a higher power to say, can you try?
Yep.
And again, they didn't
No, it wasn't to me
respond.
either. So I'm at the point of wondering how much it would cost for us to just do it with the ARPA funding, which I hate to do, but if it's short money. Now we've been going for what, a year at this? if not more?
Actually over 2 years.
2 years. There you
And
go.
all that we're requesting now
Mm-hmm.
is just the stock list. What did you send Worcester overhead door for materials that they can come now and put in? I know that there's a lot of trouble with the arch doorways, 2 arch doorways. We'll deal with them later. Like, do you have the equipment now that you can come out and do the other doors that are square? Nothing, no response, no nothing.
And the contract for that work has expired. So of course, in terms of holding feet to the fire, it gets a little bit challenging.
Just get a cost and get it done.
Yeah.
I'm kind of with you on that. Unfortunately, it's been going on for so long and literally letting heat go out the.
And the last estimate we got was early last year from Worcester overhead door was around 5,100, I think. I'd have to pull it out.
Was this something that was never done?
Yes, that's why we've been pushing
Or energy.
to have it done
Well, make
on them.
a note of this particular vendor too.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we even brought Mike Vienna. He was the architect for it. He's the one, because we only had a limited materials in the build Bible. That Mike actually went back through all their paperwork and said, yeah, it's confirmed here. It should have had door seals.
I
And-
have probably got the paperwork at home too, but I mean, would the architect be any help?
He was. He was
Oh,
actually the
okay.
one that put us in contact with everyone. And at one point, he actually told the company that I will not use you again because
Yeah, well,
this,
you should call him up and say, don't use them again now.
yeah.
I mean, the
Yeah.
only other avenue I could take, which of course costs money, is to have town council send them a letter.
No.
Which,
Just a letter.
Why?
It's still several hundred.
Why?
dollars.
They don't listen to him, they don't listen to her,
Yeah.
you're, so what?
contracts expired. I don't know that we get very far with that. I almost am, my feeling is that we should unfortunately just proceed on our own.
If you're gonna pay the money for legal, then I would rather just shift it to just get it done.
Materials.
Just get
Yeah,
the
'cause-
material and get it done.
We even held a Zoom meeting to bring everyone on the same page and
I remember that.
people didn't come. And I believe the gentleman was Worcester Road Head Door. Didn't join the meeting. And we very easily could have settled everything that day because the questions they were asking, I had no clue. That was like their thing. And I'm like, oh my God. So I'm texting him, I'm calling him, I'm emailing him, wish you were on the meeting. These are the questions, nothing. But then like 2 hours later, he responds. Well, this was helpful. Yeah, it's just been such a battle.
Yeah.
And they're grown men.
No, don't waste money. And I just wanted to say thank you to Ken. When I was down here last week, he was outside picking up and cleaning up and blowing up all the leaves, so it's nice to see
Yeah.
that you're not doing it at 10 o'clock at night and the building looks nice.
It'll look even nicer come springtime.
I know it will, but please pass along.
I will.
My thank you to Ken for all he does.
Our thank you.
I don't want to speak for the board, so.
You could ask us. We're right here.
mm,
All right.
And actually, I have one quick thing. So I
Okay.
prepared our chapter 90 projects for this coming year. If I can leave them with you guys, you can review them. If it's something you're willing to authorize.
Has Kristen already looked at them?
I don't believe so, because I
Haven't
just
looked at
had the accountant look at them at 4 o'clock today. So yeah, I can leave them with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we need to sign or anything?
Yes, someone will
Okay.
have to sign as the authority,
Okay.
and then we'll be able to hopefully get that off the ground.
Okay, great.
But yeah, that was it.
thanks, Rick.
Thank you.
Okay, so while Fred's walking away and Chip's coming up, the parking signs, how are those going to be enforced?
Are you
At the
talking about the
li-
ones at the library?
Yeah,
You want me to go out and write tickets?
just saying. I mean, if you're spending the money for the signs to put them up, then
Yep, it's a first step. We don't have parking tickets here. That's one of the
Yeah.
things that we haven't done ticket books for or enforced, I found out recently.
Yes.
So there is a cost to doing that. We've been using apparently
took a
old
vote.
like marijuana citation tickets and marking them up or something like that Rich had. I saw one once. Don't pretend to understand it, but I can speak to Chief Shartner, see if he has any ideas
Okay.
and we can get back to you
They
on that.
might have to
You
pick
guys
up
ever
the
appoint a hearing clerk for the tickets?
I
So that was his downfall before.
a couple of years ago at town
When we
meeting.
put,
Yeah.
like,
Not-
no
not at
parking
town
on the
meeting.
street overnight, sort of thing, we did that and we needed a ticking book
Yeah.
and make
Yes.
someone, I thought we did all of that when we went through that process.
I
thought
thought
we
we never
did.
took it to town meeting though.
I think you needed a,
Oh.
last time I talked to Eric, because it's same thing, problem we have down here, he goes, we have no hearing clerk. We can't hand out tickets because there's no place for people to go
And complain.
reach their grow, either go pay it or dispute it. You have to have
I-
the disputation
I really
process.
thought we
I
did
thought
that.
we solved that problem, like, with the last time we talked about, right?
Well,
We
why don't we
had
have
some
Kristen look
overnight
into it
parking
then?
in town that was a problem, that we realized that we could never make that vehicle go away because we had no rules about it. We went down a path of having rules and designing hearing clerk and deciding we're
Well,
gonna have.
it was about the, like, giving tickets on South Street when they're speeding.
When's Eric coming? Not next week, obviously, because we're not here. Why don't we just wait till Eric comes?
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, it's not a crisis.
Yeah, she doesn't need to file it on her plate. Okay, all right, giddy up.
Next.
I didn't want to interrupt them.
Got it.
I know.
All right. Will do. Thank you.
All right, Chip.
Good evening, how are you?
Hi.
Good. You're here to talk about the fishing derby,
Yes,
okay?
we'd like to do our usual, take over the field, the pond and stock it up and restrict people from access at the pond once we stock it. Unclear what day we'll stock it. We're at their kind of mercy. We've got one vendor left in the state. And last year, we planned on doing it at Wednesday at 4 o'clock and got the phone call at Tuesday. We're gonna be there in 45 minutes. We went, okay.
Yep.
So we're kind of at their whim, if they're driving by to go to somewhere, they'll drop off our portion So we want to, permission to put the signs out, everybody stay off
Mhm.
until the fishing derby. We've got per board of selectmen was put on the signs years ago. You guys authorized that, same as the fishing for kids under 16, Berlin residents only. So we can sort of keep the other people out, but as I've talked to Eric, he's like, there's nothing I can do. The guys can go down and say what they want, but the guys won't go down and say what they want because there's no backup to it. I'm like, okay. So Michael and I end up and a couple other adults go down and kick people out of there for days and days and days and throughout the summer when there's families of people from out of town and whatnot fishing. Yeah, we're looking forward to the annual event. Scott coming back to Measure Fish again.
Mhm.
All right.
Talked to Felicia about it yesterday.
There we go.
What are you doing?
You measure
Uh,
food.
I, uh,
Oh,
I
maybe.
ended
You came
up
by
going-
last year.
I came down last year just to say hi for a little bit and ended up spending the entire day down there, mostly measuring fish.
Oh,
Said I would plan for it this time, so that I know that I'm gonna be down there all morning.
We appreciate that. Park and Rec has found some other help and whatnot, so same as it's been last couple of years, just basic donuts and water for the kids and
Are you on the Board of Trade?
yeah, I'm trying to get that all back together and
Yeah.
yeah, as a local business person, yes.
Okay.
Yep. And Michael is and several other guys, but they don't want to come. They'll let me deal with the political stuff.
Okay. All right. Is the paperwork all set for all of this?
Yep.
Okay.
I just have one question. I'm sorry, I missed it. How soon do the fish get delivered before the Derby? That was the question.
That
led
was
me
it.
there.
Never-
And that
sure.
was, we're kind of at the whim. There's only one contractor left. Another contractor, the Otters, ate most of his fish. Most of the fish that would have been delivered over the last year, this year and next year. So he's kind of protecting his ponds that he has left so that he can get fish big enough to come to us.
Okay,
So we're using a contract that the one other, in Massachusetts, you have to get them from a Massachusetts approved hatchery in Massachusetts.
yep,
They seek the permits from Mass Fish and Wildlife that, yes, they're gonna stock this many fish in this pond in this town. They come with the permit and everything all done. We don't have to deal with the state aspect of it because they certify that it's coming from them
got
to
it.
us, this location, that location. But we were kind of at their whim because we asked them for Wednesday afternoon. Like I said, we got a phone call on Tuesday morning at 10:45 minutes. We're like,
And then it's
okay.
a town-owned property.
Michael and I both scurried to get down there with buckets and, help them load it and, because they usually do we usually have the kids come over after school and help us dump the buckets in.
Yeah,
But then the
Do
kids
the
are all
best
looking
you
from
can.
the school going, wait a minute. I'm like, You only do it when they can do it. They were headed somewhere else and they had enough room in the tank to put our stuff into it, so. Okay,
got it.
Yeah.
Okay,
they were going by.
So someone will notify whoever needs to be down there.
Yeah, Michael will get a phone call from the hatchery. He's asked him, call me on Monday and can you give me an idea so we can sort of plan ahead?
Right, right.
And they said it may be the same as last year where something happens where we can't go to this place, so it's suddenly we're going there. So hopefully about Monday before, which is only 2 weeks from now,
Right.
we'll have an idea, or the Friday before,
Okay.
and then I can let you know whatever, just when we expect them, and then we'll put the signs out as we always do to keep everybody off until the actual Derby, and we leave them up a couple days afterwards just to keep the non-townies as much as we can out with the signs that we do put up.
Okay.
Some of them can't read them, but some have blatantly read them and gone, yeah, so what? Okay.
All right.
So,
Any questions or,
No,
okay,
I move we support and sign the special event application for the town fishing derby.
Seconded.
okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye,
Aye.
all right,
There you go.
thank you, Chip.
that was easy.
copies are all set. I turned it to.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chip. Appreciate your help with that.
No problem.
You coming down? Okay.
Sure, I'll come down.
Okay.
I'm not putting anything on a hook.
No.
No.
How about taking something off the hook?
Yeah, absolutely not either. I will give tons of encouragement.
I'm not sure that if they're planning to, but hopefully.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
all right, thank you.
Thank you, Chip.
All righty.
Yeah, okay, sorry, we're trying to figure something out. So, before I go into my TA report, I did review the documents that Fred submitted. This is a bit unanticipated, but we're not meeting again until the 22nd.
Right.
And I don't want to delay him moving forward by 3 weeks. So this is for paving on Peach Hill Road as well as Lower Sawyer Hill Road. The projects are each over $100,000. So I would ask if the board would consider signing off on the paving on each of those roads. So I'm being very clear that it is not on the agenda. It was an unanticipated business, but asking if the board would be willing to sign off. It is Chapter 90 money. So it comes from the state, does not have any direct impact on taxes, and I can give you the exact amount on each. The the Sawyer Hill Road project is. Sorry. $117,207.30. And that is to do 3,952, I assume, linear feet, 20 feet wide of roadway there. Pass this one down to you. So this is the Lower Sawyer Hill. And then Peach Hill is reclaim 11,000 square yards and repave Peach Hill Road at a cost of $243,431.10. So the nice thing is that when we went out to bid for paving for bituminous concrete and reclamation last year, we did it as a multi-year contract. So what I'm working on is getting amendments to those that will come before you on the 22nd, but these all have to be submitted and approved by Mass DOT before we can move forward with anything else.
On which line do we sign?
You can sign on all 3 of those municipal official lines.
1, 2, and 3.
Yep.
Do we want a motion for that?
I'd like a motion if you could,
I
please.
would move that we sign both of these. Fred has come before us talking about these projects in previous presentations, and so these
And
were
here they
expected
are.
documents. Yep.
Do I hear a
Second.
second? Okay, all in favor? Say aye.
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 Can someone make a note that we bring this up at Coffee Talk, because it was asked at last Coffee Talk when Peach Hill was getting paved, so I think that it would be nice, even if the residents aren't here to say.
Yeah.
Peach Hills, even though I called them, now it's official.
Was that one Peach Hill?
Yep. Peach
Yeah,
Hill and
okay.
Lower Sawyer.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I heard the Lower Sawyer.
Thank you very much. And while you are working on that, you have, in your file, which we'll go on to next, what is very close to the final warrant and will be tomorrow. We had our final FinCom FY25 budget meeting. All financial warrant articles have been voted on and all budget line items have been voted on except for the Berlin Memorial School capital line item. The FinCom wanted to wait until the capital committee made a recommendation on the requested school capital items. And given the late submittal, unfortunately, that we received, they do not have time to vote again on this line item before the warrant goes to the printer tomorrow. So therefore, the FinCom will make a recommendation on this line item at town meeting. I did meet with the moderator and the town clerk to finalize the warrant and answer any questions that they had on the articles. And attended the capital committee meeting where the committee changed things up a little bit. They did vote to recommend the $38,253 in capital funding for Tohoto, which meets the school budget request. However, they only recommended $143,000 in funding for the Berlin Memorial School capital request. They took out the $400,000 for HVAC and air conditioning due to a lack of information or itemized quotes. Unfortunately, all they had was a text message with an approximate amount of the project and approximately what the rebates would be, which was $100,000. So without that information, sort of the mechanism for how the town would either get those rebates back or those rebates would come off of a future capital project. Combined with just not having quotes and that being just sort of a round number kind of estimate. the capital committee did not want to move forward with that at this time. They wanted to gather more information and ask that the schools bring it back for FY 26. Also worked on finalizing the annual town meeting warrant with town council, so we're close. Just have a couple little edits to make in the morning, and then we should be in good shape. Obviously, we'll talk about it in a minute here. I had the opportunity to meet with the president of Clinton Savings Bank and the senior vice president to discuss some of our banking needs. Bank recon, potential lockbox, and I forget what the other one, payroll protection, which they call Paycheck Plus, I think, and I'm forgetting the exact name of it, but it's to help with check fraud. So we're having those conversations to make sure they can meet the needs of municipalities. They do work with several other ones. And so we're trying to make sure that we can get those items as well. Still working on the Bullard House project, including the drainage and foundation work. Also working on union negotiations. I think it's fair to say, and Chris, you can chime in, but discussions are going well. And I believe we'll be able to finalize them prior to the end of the fiscal year. In fact, knock on wood, if all goes well, I'd like to finalize them by the end of April, but I know sometimes things take a little bit longer, so we'll say end of fiscal year. Also working on integrating the software known as DTS, which tracks hours worked and benefits accruals for the public safety into the town's accounting and payroll systems. So this is a program that police and fire already have that track a number of functions within their department. And we'll be working to try to implement, integrate it into Harper's and our systems to improve some accuracy, and especially with police payroll, which is by far the most complicated payroll. That's what I have for you.
All right. I'm gonna move on to,
Oh, wait, I have a question.
oh, sorry.
Kristen, the 400,000 that they took out, with
Yep.
that, they being capital. Which school was applying for looking at grants for the roof?
So that's
Western
another
Elementary.
project at Berlin Memorial that they would be looking at, a state Mass School Building Authority grant in FY 26.
Okay,
So that's another large capital cost.
okay,
They estimated that initially at $800,000, but then got a quote that was more like 280, I think. So again, I think capital's concern, if I heard it correctly, was without having actual quotes, it's really easy to kind of throw a number at a dartboard, but you don't know how much it's actually going to come in at. And as we saw with a roof here, it came in a lot lower than we thought it was going to be. And from what I understand, the Boylston Elementary School roof has come in a lot lower than what they anticipated too. So they just want some more homework on both of those items.
has the school committee been notified of that? Or do we have to, or courtesy?
Have not, I don't believe, notified them specifically. I'll reach out to Anna Crane just to touch base and
Okay,
see, because she's the chair of capital.
Kristen, do you want to mention that several reps from the school, they come to that capital planning meeting?
Would you like to share, Julie?
Oh,
I talk too much as it is. Please come share.
Hi, I'm Julie Malik. One of the things I do is I'm the FinCom rep on capital. I don't vote on capital though. So one of the nice things, because it's been a frustrating part of the process, is Julie Lee, who's on the school committee, Bill Campbell, who's the principal, and I'm sorry, I forget the name of the two other people who came, but they came to describe the tech requests and facilities. So I think it was actually good because it was helpful for capital to present it, what was going on, and we were able to ask questions. And the frustrating point that you were bringing up, and I could really feel it in the room, is nobody was against the HVAC. It was just, there was no documentation and nobody felt comfortable basically requesting that much money without further documentation. So.
Right. And I'll talk to Anna,
Thank
because
you.
I haven't seen an email.
Thanks, Julie.
But I think you're right, which would communicate that back to the schools. So it was great to have them all come. IT Director Paul Mara and Facilities Director Dan Ayala. So we had quite the crowd, and they did a great explanation of everything. And as Julie said, I think it was really helpful. I just wish it had happened sooner.
Well, it,
Hmm.
it's funny, it was interesting, when you and I were at that school committee meeting, and that was Tuesday, I said, they're meeting on Thursday, get your stuff in. Well, of course, I was a week off. But it's,
No, you weren't actually. We moved it. It's,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
it wasn't.
but what was interesting was that they were able to turn it by the next day to say, this is what it means, and this is what it costs. So it's like, please take this into consideration when you do this again next year, that, you know, so.
I think it's, the whole thing has been, it's not that they didn't have the information, there's been a hesitance to release the information till it was final. And I think that you and I were able to kind of make that point, that we understand it's not final, we want estimates, it can evolve, our budget evolves
Right.
over months, and that's okay.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Any other questions? Nope. All righty. Then we're gonna talk about the warrant.
Okay, we are in good shape. I just have a couple of things to point out for you this evening. Our River Bridge Articles 5 and Article 6. So, of course, wouldn't be complete without a couple of little, glitches, but I think we're gonna be fine. We're leaving the articles as they are, but we have now had town council review the warrant from a land use perspective, and there are a couple of additional steps that will need to be taken. Both parcel lot A both lot 6A and lot 6B have conservation restrictions on a portion of the land. So that will require a subdivision should the select board want to sell off any of that land and or lease it. Because what's happened now, and I don't know if any of you are familiar with Article 97, it's a rather onerous article. We talked about it when we talked about the Verizon cell tower. Taking land out of conservation land
Mhm.
it takes nearly an act of God now. And you actually have to take and recreate the same number of acreage somewhere else. So we knew it had a conservation restriction on it. The extra step of the subdivision, which can happen through the planning board, not that big of a deal, but there is that extra piece that would have to be done. And we will likely have to accept the road up there as a public road, because the town does not have the authority to work on private roads. So there is a private
Even if we
road.
own them.
Even if we own them, believe it or not, it's a very weird scenario, but there is a chapter of Mass General Law that you can adopt about maintenance of private roads. The problem is when you adopt that, then it's open to any private road, and it can be quite costly for the town. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend adopting a general private road maintenance bylaw for the town. The better route would be at a future town meeting to probably make that road a public road if everything passes, as we're hoping it will, at town meeting in May with the 4th modification to the development agreement. Town council does recommend leaving, the articles as they are. Those would be additional steps that we would just need to take before we do any type of lease or sale of the parcel. So I just wanted to add those little wrinkles in there. Caveats, because it's just never super simple. But we'll get there. Provided town meeting is on board with the plan, then we can take, those would be just the additional steps prior to disposition that we would need to take. Also, the civilian traffic officers, you'll notice that was Article 24, I believe, or 25, has come off the warrant. This one I woke up in the middle of the night and I went, this one's always felt a bit strange to me because it didn't reference any specific Mass General Law, and the town doesn't have a bylaw that positions that need to be created have to go to town meeting. So it was based on Harvard's town meeting where they took this position there. So we did a little bit of digging, and Harvard actually has a bylaw that requires any civilian positions of this nature go to town meeting. So we had Town Labor Council take a quick look at it. They said that we actually would create the position. It would go to the Personnel Committee for approval and a job description. And it does not require town meeting approval. It would just be like creating any other normal town position. So, I mean, there's no reason to have an extra article on the warrant if we don't need to have it. So that article has come off. Those were the two big changes. And then the only other question I have for you all is, if you want, and you don't have to, but based on the information you have now from the capital committee, you could revote or reconsider the Berlin Memorial Capital Assessment, which is line item 105 in the budget on page 26, if you wanted to, or you could just leave it alone and speak to it on the floor like the FinCom is doing. So I wanted to give you that option because that number has changed in the budget at the recommendation of capital.
And it has changed how?
So,
Lost the $400,000 that for the HVAC stuff.
correct.
Okay.
So you all voted 2-1 for funding, fully funding that request at 543,000. It's now in the budget at 143,000.
I'm personally fine with changing our recommendation to match capital.
Agreed.
To the 143,000.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay,
So I will,
I am too.
then I'll make the motion that we adjust the recommended amount for Berlin Memorial Capital to the 143 and change to match capital.
All right, so that would be line item
105.
105 to 143, 132.
Yep.
Seconded.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
And then I didn't know if anybody else had any other questions on the warrant and going through it, comments, anything like that.
After our discussion, when was it, last meeting or the meeting before? Did you put in an override?
So good news on that. Yes, thank you for bringing that up. I forgot about that part. So the way that the warrants have traditionally been drafted here is the budget motions go separately because they have been subject to change in the past, like we did last year with the schools. So that would actually go on those budget motions. So right now it's not in the warrant. It would actually go in the motion part of it that we write for the budget. So
Well, there we go, huh?
it makes it a little easier. So what I would do is bring those motions back to you on the 22nd, because that's still 2 weeks before town meeting to see if, you know, you're okay with them and how we would want to proceed. So.
How does the FinCom want to proceed? Do you have any
Ah.
idea?
You need to come up, Scott.
Well, he's asking, it is not currently on the municipal ballot for the following Monday, and we would have to vote on that almost now
Right.
if it was going to be
It
on the
would
ballot.
just have
for
to
Monday.
be a special
It
ballot.
would have to be a special election, or you could put it on. So that is one question for you. Would you like, if you would like to vote to put it on the ballot, we could definitely put it in the motion, the budget motions. So it's really a challenge. And I think we were I don't know if we talked at FinCom as much as we talked here about drafting those optional warrants, like the two motions on the warrant for the budget one, which would say that if the FinCom article wasn't accepted, or the FinCom motion wasn't accepted for the school budget, then we could do we would recommend doing an override to fully fund the school budget.
Yeah, well, I guess that was the expectation is that's how we would do it. I think the logistics of it are just unclear at the
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah, so, and I did speak with town council about that, and it basically could be, you could do it as a motion, and I asked Barry.
Yeah,
and
Barry and Eloise.
he didn't see an issue with taking it off the floor. So we could either have it in the motions, or he would take a motion from the floor. For it,
Well,
so-
that's why I kept saying, let the school committee do their homework and
Well,
see
the
what
school
they
committee
want to
would
do.
Never want to have an override. The schools would oppose override.
Exactly.
Right.
So if we wait for the schools to ask for an override, it will never happen because it's not in their interest to ask for an override. The only people who want an override potentially are FinCom and us. Schools have no interest in an override.
Right, so the
It
problem
makes the
is,
process more complicated.
right, if we
Not
don't,
really.
if we
It
don't.
always will
change
make the
it-
process more complicated. It's another process they'd have to go through.
Oh, well.
Right, that's why
It would
The
never come from
schools
them.
are not gonna ask for an override. We are not doing the override for the school.
They're gonna ask somebody else to ask for the.
No, they
override.
won't. No one in
No.
the schools, no parent group will ever ask for an override because it is not in their best interest. They will always oppose an override. And so if the school board's gonna
Okay,
oppose an override, they're
whatever.
not gonna make the motion to do something they oppose.
Right, that's the issue is, if you go through the override, you will get a much larger percentage of the town, so you get much more, the town's feedback, and you'll
Right.
have better consensus of what you're doing moving forward. In absence of doing the override, you now can turn it into a much more contentious item, because now it's a very smaller, maybe a smaller percentage of people that will make a major decision for the town. And that could go either way there too. So.
I'm not saying don't have an override because, I just think that they need to do some homework.
Well, yes, I would like to see them doing their homework also. I mean, right now it doesn't, I mean, it's not even clear to me what's going on in Boylston, because I don't know if, Kristen, if you've heard from anybody over there.
I haven't. I
Because we
can
know
reach
that
out.
the cuts that they made are not sufficient. I mean, Boylston, they have to go to an override based on the budget they submitted at this time, unless they make some significant cuts. And of course, obviously, Tohoto is at much more greater mercy at what goes on at Boylston, because even if it passes here in Berlin, any cuts, though, if it doesn't pass with an override based on their budget as it is, you will have, if they cut, whatever they cut there, there's another, because there's like 50% more that they have to cut off because we're at 1/3, 2/3 split. So that's gonna be a big factor there too. And basically, I mean, going by watching what the school committee has organized, it doesn't seem like they have organization. It seems to be a very chaotic process. Unlike last year at this time, we were hearing from the parent groups. We're not hearing anything from the parent groups.
Mhm.
And so it
Well, the
does
school
seem.
committee was even asking Kristen for how do we do this? And they should have been doing their own homework.
Well, yes, I mean, it was very contentious last year at one of our first meetings with, not this, for this fiscal year, last fiscal year, after we discussed, where they came with a very large budget, initial budget, number, was when one of the members, immediately just basically came up, go, well, after you don't approve it, how do we override you, basically?
Right.
It was
And
not
that's not
exactly a very
something-
friendly start to things on that, and also where they just don't seem to want to do their homework or listen. They have it, it's their kind of their way or the highway kind of approach so far. It's not been no, we thought it would be better this year because kind of as things ended last year, they talked about, starting the process early. There was a meeting, I think it was in October.
Yep.
That we seemed to be starting on that, and then things just fell off right after that.
Mhm.
And it just becomes down to a big lack of communication.
Well, I mean, is there a way to send a message that we are only going to consider an override if you want more than what we have approved?
Right, well, I think, I mean,
That's what I'm
we have sent the message, I mean, we've just finishing up the finance committee report. And we're detailing in there as much as we can about
Mhm.
how much more
I
of an
did read that this
increase,
afternoon.
right? All we can do is put out the raw
Right.
numbers. We will obviously get to speak on the floor to what those numbers are and can give that a comparison to what happened last year. And based on obviously their budget right now, if it moved forward, you're looking at nearly double the levy increase of last year. If people thought that was large, well, now you're looking at
Just wait.
almost 2x to that number. And so, and we can see what they want to speak to on that to the floor. I mean, if there are people that just are going to close their eyes and just do whatever the school committee says to do, there's nothing we can really control that unless, just getting our message out.
I have to be positive that the school committee, the meeting that Kristen and I were at, they heard. Because there was a motion by a school committee member to revert back to the original budget of, they were 2 million over, and not a one seconded.
Yeah.
No one seconded. And I think it came to the chair when I said to her, you realize the selectmen are the only ones who have authority to put the override on. And it was honestly like the proverbial bulb went on, and there was even discussion that they know
Mhm.
that an override will not pass. You had school committee members saying that, so.
I know no one thinks it will pass, but that's the only way if they want additional money.
Right, but without us hinging it upon that, they can just take the excess levy. So that's the concern, right? I mean, that's why
I
we,
know that's the concern, but really, can they?
Yeah.
What would they do?
Yeah.
Yes, they could
Make a
pass a
motion?
motion on the floor to increase their budget to the recommended budget. It passes and it's done.
Yep.
Yep.
There's
And
no,
someone would change the motion to be, you know,
someone would have to do that. 'Cause
Yes.
the school board wouldn't do that
No.
because they don't want.
exactly.
So someone who's not the schools or associated with the schools would have to amend
Exactly.
their motion.
And that's one of the possibilities too.
It's a possibility, but honestly, Scott, to your point, I think if you just stand up and say, folks, look around, you weren't happy with a $600-ish increase last year. Well, guess what, boys and girls, here we go, double it. There's your message. That's all you gotta say.
Right, and I think also the way we structured the budget last time, we know we had and what we anticipated, the large, out of district tuition for sped coming for BMS. And it's really looking at, on the BMS side, that, we stepped up in that scenario. That is, obviously, we see in their line item that is decreased by over $500,000. So clearly that anticipation was not needed. So where did basically that extra funding go? I mean, I think that's a thing that they need to answer on the floor. And because they're not really giving us good answers here.
and we asked that at that meeting and they
Mhm.
said it was reallocated amongst other special
Yes.
education needs.
That's not what their finance director said. When
Yes.
at the meeting
No.
I went to. it
That's
was-
what the
she- that's
special education director said, and then that they wouldn't
Yeah.
discuss it further because of privacy reasons.
And that's the part of the problem is they keep falling back in the privacy thing. We don't care about any names, individuals, exactly
Numbers.
where the
Mm-mm.
out of district special education was supposed to go to, or that we just want raw numbers.
Right.
And they keep falling back on the privacy thing, which is not,
And it never has been
yeah.
up until this group.
Yes, exactly. So, I mean, it's gonna be very complicated because obviously the BMS side is where, it's a bigger dollar amount, though we have, if you look back at the numbers that they presented last year, I haven't seen the report, anything come out this year, but no, on a per pupil basis, I mean, we are very highly, one of the tops in the area when it comes to BMS. So then to look at even piling a huge amount more money on that is gonna be, I think, a hard sell for them, or should be a hard sell. While at the same time, Tohoto is going to be the one that's in a very difficult position because they can't avoid an override on the Boylston side. And we also know that when it comes to Boylston, it's their elementary school that's one of the lowest in the area per pupil expenditures. And we also know that's their school is the one that's getting closer to, bursting in terms of having the higher, per pupil or number of, in a classroom, right? The number of students in each classroom compared to BMS.
When
So it's looking to turn into a mess. I mean, it's always difficult just because of you had the way the different schools are on this. And I don't think most people even understand how they're broken down between Tohoto and BMS. I mean, one of the things I wanted, we look to add into the articles this year, just on the capital side, to articulate it that the capital items that we've listed, what are our share of that are coming in from like Tohoto is approximately the total cost is 3x that. And I saw lots of communications going on and people even mocking other people and having everything totally wrong about what the actual costs were. I mean, maybe part of that was our fault for not articulating it clearly, but we are, correcting that to make sure that people understand that, if they're looking even at the capital items, it's not just what Berlin's, if there's a certain line item there, like for example, last year they had the 3D printers, that 3D printer wasn't that cost. It was essentially 3 times that cost. And so we were
Right.
about 1/3 versus 2/3. But no, it doesn't seem like, even many of the people that would come out to vote on this stuff even understand how
No.
these things are going to get broken down.
And the reason why Boylston Elementary has suffered over the years is because when Boylston was going through issues with their finances, they would cut Boylston Elementary, because if they cut Tohoto, then we had to cut a portion too.
Yes, that was where,
And-
back when I was dealing with the earlier years in the finance committee, was
Yeah.
I kind of would leave it, instead of trying to dictate, how much an increase would be at BMS or Tohoto, would try to leave it for them to make the decision, because we knew that if they cut $100,000 at BMS, it was just $100,000. But they cut $100,000 from our side at Tohoto, that turns into a $300,000
Right.
cut. So, and of course, right, Tohoto is where they would try to, keep the numbers such that both Berlin and BMS,
Yeah.
or excuse me, Berlin and Boylston can meet, and then work with what they can in the elementary schools. And we've always been more fortunate on the elementary school side than Boylston.
Mhm.
All we can do is just have a very clear message. If this happens, this happens. If that happens, that happens, and then be done. And
We're
then
just gonna
it's,
point to you,
well, no, but
you know?
it's up to the town. It's up to the town.
It is
That's right.
completely up to the town. We believe we've got a clear message that, people will be able to see it in the warrant.
Yeah.
That people can, direct them to those pages when they have the warrant.
Mhm.
And then at town meeting, we can, read out the details from there so people can get the full picture. And likewise, we also reference what, the deal that happened last year, which was also mentioned in the report from the year before, so people can't act like they're blindsided from it. We documented that process.
And I read that letter to them at the last school committee meeting, specifically pointed it out where they added it, and I'm like, point of order, and read it. So it was on tape there, as well.
Well, exactly. We got it right. We have everything. We've
Mhm.
covered our tracks. They can't go as like we're trying to change the game on them. We can only just work with the raw numbers. I wish they would be much more amenable to working with us, but it just seems like that's not the approach that at least enough school committee members want to do. I mean, I don't want to lump all 6 of them into the same category, but there clearly is not enough to look at coming to us, and likewise on the Boylston side. It's not just us, right? I mean,
Right,
it's kind of a case of hostility both, with the select board and finance committee on Boylston side, also with the school committee. No, we don't have to look just at us and say, what's our problem?
right. So Kristen, while I'm thinking of it, you were gonna contact Boylston about something?
To see where they're at. I'll
Yeah.
contact Howard, I can contact, April or Howard Drobner that we've been meeting with and find out,
Or Matt?
Matt. Yep.
Yeah, why don't you, and then see, do they want to meet again, or are they all set? I don't know if it's necessary now at this
Well, it
point.
might be good to get together, just to see exactly what each of us are putting on, make sure everybody's clear about where we're putting on.
What
our
they're hearing,
warrant.
what we're hearing,
Well, that's what the whole point has been, right, is
right?
to make sure that what they knew was going on, and there's just making sure that we're all on the same page.
Right,
Because that's been the difficult thing, is because we've also seen where they've invited certain things. They've invited, 2 finance committee members from Boylston and nobody from Berlin in certain situations. Like, well, do you not understand that you're not getting one from each? You got 2, but they're 2 different committees. So I don't know what the rationale of some of that stuff is.
right.
Well,
Okay.
and, oh, sorry.
That's it.
I was just gonna say a couple of little points, and I'm glad you brought up the override, because now that I found my list, it's on there to talk about. One of the reasons, until we started using this format of the warrant, no motions were in the town meeting warrants previously. And I like to see them in there because I think that they do help people understand, because you don't usually have numbers if you don't have warrants. The reason I'm sorry, if you don't have motions, the reason I'm okay with not having the budget motions is because you actually have the budget physically printed in the warrant for folks to go ahead and look at. So
That's
even though
right.
you
The
don't have the
motions used to
motion,
be in the warrant, didn't they?
Yeah, they are this.
they are
Yeah.
now, yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, this is I
Right.
brought my format. I liked having them in there. I know it was a little odd, but I think
Yeah.
it just gives more information. It's more
Yeah.
transparency, right? So people, it's
Mhm.
easier for people to see what you're actually gonna vote on. But the reason that also we are fine with, Barry's fine with taking motion from the floor is because there never used to be any motions in the warrant mapped out ahead of time. So that would be something that would be there as a motion for a budget article. So,
You know, it's amazing that the people that go to town meeting don't realize they could stand up at any time and make a motion.
right, and the
And
moderator.
nobody
can-
knows that they can do that,
Well,
I guess.
Yeah, as long as it's within the scope of the article and the
Right.
moderator takes it and such, but,
Or even, or even like modify the motion on the floor.
yes,
No one
exactly. Well,
seems
and
to
it
realize.
kind of gets explained if you read, Barry asks me every year to put these 3 written pages in the
Right.
guide. I actually put them in the front this year. I think they were in the back last year, but I put them up front.
Mhm.
And it talks about, the bylaws for town meeting, the conduct at town meeting, motions. So if folks read through it, it gives them a little synopsis
Right.
of how they can do things, which is good. But the second thing I wanted to point out is, as we know, the school numbers changed again with their final vote that they took on March 19th. And I plugged all the numbers back in over the past week to run what it would be with their new numbers, because they went down. So if we put capital aside for a minute, because that would likely be free cash. And we're not that far off. I mean, if you're talking a difference of $125,000, I would never recommend a debt exclusion for $125,000. When we were talking 1.3 million, that was a whole different ballgame. So if you set capital aside, you're really looking at the operating deficit for the override, which is $741,312. So $741,312. So if you plug that in to our fancy property tax calculator on the state's website with all the caveats. June, you want to give all the caveats?
It's just an estimate.
Just an
Only
estimate.
Based on last year's.
Based on this year's numbers, but this is for next year, so that, housing values could go up as they did this past year by $100,000. Because housing prices, as I just said, went up by $100,000, even just with the 2.5% increase that we are allowed to go up every year, the average single family home valued at about $650,000 will see a $400 increase. That is just the basic balanced budget at 2.5. If you were to do an override to fund the school requested budget, which requests another 741,000 in funds, that adds approximately another $450 to the tax bill. So instead of a $400 average increase, you're looking at about an $850 average increase. It was much higher before when they were asking for 1.3 million in capital and 1.2 million in, or 1.1 million in operating. So I did just want to point out that number has gone down since they reduced their
Mhm.
budget. But still, I mean, people were unhappy with 600. I don't know that they're going to be very happy with 850 either. So,
Well, it's interesting. I mean, Westboro published their budget and they gave like a legit breakdown. And their taxes are going up 835. So you think of the size of Westboro compared to Berlin, they were able to break it down that the 835 increase comes from,
right, because they have single tax rate, I bet.
I don't
Makes it
know.
easier,
I was looking
yeah.
at it, but I mean, it was just interesting to be able to see that. And if you look Berlin and you look Westboro, that
Yeah.
our increase is peg math almost even from what they're doing.
So one of the things that, was very concerning this year is that the school's starting at this number and we're starting at that number.
That was my third point. You're queuing me up.
Yes.
I heard back from Desi today.
Oh, good.
Yes,
Go ahead.
so very excited, and I will quote them because I think quoting is good. Oh shoot, where did it go? I had it up.
So is this Christine
This is
Lynch?
Christine Lynch
All right.
at DESI. And among other things, including the fact that it appears there was a mistake apparently in the district's reporting of Berlin's FY24 assessment amount, which she did not go into detail about, but said she has left a message for the district business manager to discuss. Regardless, DESI does not certify town assessments. However, they do edit the submissions that are submitted on their annual reports, and that's where she's seeing a potential discrepancy in the number reported for Berlin's
And
FY24.
that's why they haven't
assessment.
gotten,
That's why they
back
haven't
to
gotten
us?
that that number
certified
certified.
number.
Although they don't certify the town's assessments, they go through and edit their reports. So it's not a certification, it's a review and sign off, if you will, not a certification. But
Okay.
this is the key to that whole email. There is no state mandate that would require the town to provide the same level of funding or more from the previous fiscal year. As discussed, however, the town is required to meet its minimum local contribution to the regional school district. And as we've talked about, we are well above the MLC. I think somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 20% for the district, based on Assabet's calculations that they actually brought to the FinCom. They did an analysis of the neighboring districts. And as of FY22, the district was 15% above minimum local contribution. And that didn't include the huge jump that we gave in FY23. Exactly. So it's gone up from there. But the good news is, and this I think is why perhaps it's gone radio silent on the school side of this matter, we can reduce their budget. So the dispute is kind of moot at this point, whether they want to say 3.9, well, we want to say 3.9 and they want to say 4.2. It doesn't matter. I mean, they can get up at town meeting and say we're underfunding them from the previous year, and we can explain that those were one-time funds. And we are legally, even if the state were to have said, no, you start at 4.2, it doesn't matter. We're not required to fund them at 4.2.
Could you make sure that that point is well brought out, Scott? I'm going to assume it's either you or Mary Porter who's going to stand up from finance, and I don't know who from us. I'm leaning towards the one in purple on the end, to stand up. But that needs to be out there
Yeah.
because that was in an email that went far and wide
It did.
that said, we have to fund that last year. So if we can make sure that that point is there with Bible and verse, who it comes from, to refute the version of correct information that's floating around
Correct.
that.
So, and the reason is, and this was where I've been concerned all along, we're only increasing the school's budget a combined total of $178,271. And that's for Tohoto and BMS on the operating side. That's the 2.5%. If they're saying we had to start by including the 383, then I would have had to cut $200,000 from the town budget, which has been the result of my insomnia for the last month. So fortunately, we don't have to cut on the town side, but it does make it look like we're starting them at a cut. And I don't believe that we are, because that was one-time funding and it was very clearly presented that that was the way it was going to be.
Yeah, I think we do need to come to some
Fine points that
agreement.
need to be provided.
No, I mean, for the next year, you do need
Well,
to come, you
I'm
know,
not even
well,
worried about
I
this.
I
year.
would
I need
start
to
with,
get
I mean, the
through.
good thing is, yeah,
6
they don't,
months.
you have
I
an
have my
election,
plan for next year, but let's get through town meeting.
yeah, we'll get through that. You have an election in
Right.
November, and then we'll see how that, if
Correct.
that helps any. But one of the things that's disturbing is them using that 383 number, because then what they presented and how they presented at their meetings and that stuff, they show it as if they're doing a small percentage increase overall.
Like 5.
Correct.
That is so skewing the numbers, and it's not a fair representation. It is very deceptive for them to continue to move forward, especially since, like Kristen said, after we got that first email on it saying that it's not legal for us to reduce that number, which their attorney was on, and their attorney even at one point replied back going, I'm busy with something else right now. I have something time sensitive. I'll get back on this. it makes sense why it completely went silence, because clearly
not true.
they got nothing on it. That is, that they were incorrect of what they either believed, or else, I hope
Were
they
told.
weren't, I hope they weren't trying to bluff us on it. But yeah, it's having them go out there with a number that's not, at least percentage wise, that's just not a true
Accurate.
representation.
Right.
I mean, we have to get our message out. I mean, I know we got the coffee talk
Mhm.
thing that will be coming, what's like 3 weeks away or so.
25th.
Yeah, but I
Yep.
think there's other ways we need to look at getting the message out there. Because people will be getting their warrant, but we do need to just keep communicating this in some way. Because we don't want them to communicate the incorrect message,
Right.
or at least the message they want to put out there.
Because in all fairness, you're talking a 15% increase on the Berlin Memorial assessment, just operating, not including capital. You're talking 10.5 on Tohoto. Now that's on top of the roughly 9% we gave them for each school last year. So that's compounded. When you look at that, that's huge.
And remember also, even that 9% each school was what we were targeting, calling our assessment. That doesn't include the 383,000 that we tacked on to help them with what looked like was this major exposure to the district special education. So if you put that 383, the number was, I think, would have been in the 20-some% at BMS.
Yeah, it
is
was
what I
almost
think.
20.
Right?
Yeah. Yep. So, I mean, I think, it is skewed, and I wish we had agreement on the starting number. I don't think we're gonna get there though, so we're just gonna have to move forward with an explanation at town meeting. That's the best we can do, and at least we know legally we're not doing anything wrong. If we were funding at the minimum local contribution, which no one really does, very
Nobody wants to
few.
do that.
Right, then we wouldn't be able to cut, but we're not, we're well above
Well, I
it.
mean, they haven't updated the local, the minimum local contribution in years. So,
But
it's
we're
very,
way-
very low for every.
We're well
school.
above
Yeah,
it.
we're way above that. And I think
Right.
what we should do is I'll go back and look for the per pupil spending that they presented last year, which,
Mm.
and because really the major thing would be on BMS side here. I mean, Tohonto's kind of like saying their fate is with I think Boylston. I mean, still a big increase from our side, but BMS, I mean, we are per pupil spending, we are very generous in the town of Berlin.
We have been, yes.
relative to the other towns around us.
Agreed.
So do you need a vote on anything on the warrant right now, or are you just gonna keep?
I do. What
It'll
I,
be in the mail tomorrow.
correct, I need a vote for you to approve the warrant.
Okay,
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it.
thank you.
Now, you guys don't actually quote unquote sign the warrant, but it's given under your hands this first day of April, so I guess the vote would be to authorize, to approve the warrant and to direct us to serve the warrant, and mail it out.
I thought we used to sign it.
The one last year didn't have anyone's signatures on it.
Mhm.
And I stole that part from the year before, but
Hmm.
maybe I messed it up. I
I
mean,
don't
you
think
can
we
if you
signed it.
want, you want to sign it.
No, it should be funny to look back at some of the old
Yeah,
warrants and see,
I think
in the books.
I didn't go that far back. I think I went back to Margaret's.
I would move we approve the warrant as written and direct you to have it posted and mailed post haste.
Excellent.
Giddy up. Second.
Can you
Okay.
also just on that allow me, I assume to correct any Scrivener's errors that I find I am proofing it
Yes.
again, so.
Done.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we've got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Right.
All right, and we have no business, no new business.
No,
Board questions on the agendas, liaison updates? Anybody?
the only thing, I assume we meet on the 22nd, which is
Mhm.
our next meeting, that we will talk about coffee talk. I would encourage us to look at a coffee talk and not go over every warrant article and just focus on the 5 or 6 we think are going to be.
So we are meeting on the 22nd, because normally we
Normally
skip the
don't.
meeting.
But can we really go
can't.
3 weeks without
No,
meeting?
we
Well,
can't.
we
right
have the
now.
training on the 22nd too, so we're gonna have to have a bit of a regular meeting since we're skipping the 8th. So it's
Right.
gonna be a bit of a long
Yeah.
night, I think.
So we'll just come down here at 6:30 and go through the
Anywhere on the
training.
8th. I could just be right here with anybody else who wants to be.
And you'll be a party of one.
I'll be here, but. I
So
can't
it's not
vote.
my fault.
No, no, no. I mean, if we're starting at 6:30,
Yeah.
for the training, I
Yeah.
don't think that's
Right.
going to take more than an hour at
Right.
the most. So then we have, an hour to do regular.
I know, but
business.
we were hoping we
Yeah, but if we
wouldn't
don't-
have that much, so.
Right, but if we don't do a department update, and we don't do minutes, and we could keep it to just
Mhm.
coffee talk. I
Warrant,
think is
yep,
the,
yep.
the big thing to make sure that we're on.
Well, yeah,
topic for coffee
I mean, I suppose if we had anything to talk about with Coffee Talk, it's usually generally it goes through the warrant articles.
Right, which I'm about to say, I don't think we should go through the warrant articles.
Oh, you don't
So-
want me to sit and go through article? I can
No,
do it fast, I'll
I
tell you.
think
No.
we just spent 45 minutes on the school budget, the three of us. Imagine a
Correct.
bigger room, and people aren't gonna sit there for 6.5
This
hours.
is
to
one
go
way we
forward.
get the word
And
out.
So,
Right.
right, and so I think we'll pick the 4 or 5 that I think are more.
Well,
more
I don't
important to
know,
go.
Scott. I mean, there may be some that are important to you and maybe are something else that's important to somebody else.
At 2 hours of coffee talk, I will leave, just because that'll be about my limit,
Oh.
and it's.
That was one thing I was gonna put on the agenda for tonight, which was talking about 9 o'clock needs to be a hard stop.
If the
Yeah.
work needs to go past 9
Yeah.
o'clock, it needs to go past 9 o'clock.
Well,
You
then
can't
we
say
have to
that.
sort of gear the agendas so they're not going to, or why don't we just, be careful how much we talk about everything, I guess. I don't know.
We're not able to start earlier, right?
I don't know. That would be another option. Are you available any earlier than 7, Scott?
As long as I'm not driving to Lexington, I can get here at 6:30, which is most Mondays, because I try to do my schedule.
Mostly, so
So I-
6:30 is
so I-
about the
no,
earliest?
oh, yeah, but 6 is about as early.
6 or 6:30?
6:30 is about as early as I can really get here.
Well, that would help a little bit. Because I think we're all crabby by this time.
Mm-mm.
Well,
Yeah, you are too.
But I
think
just
if-
I don't think that we can limit it and say we have to stop discussion by X o'clock.
No,
I
we
don't-
need to gear it so that that is the goal. And it may or may not be right around there.
I would not be in
How do
favor of,
you think Barry does it at town meeting?
yeah, but I would not be in favor of putting a time
No.
limit on our meetings.
I think we can be more mindful of the time when we go on tangents to not spend as much time on. it.
Okay. Okay,
I would be
maybe we
open
just need to be
starting at-
reminded then?
Do you want me to shut people down?
No, I think you'll-
No.
I think you'll only get in trouble.
I will get in trouble, exactly. I will get
I should
myself
be the
in trouble.
chair, I guess.
Yeah,
And I try to occasionally but I don't like to cut people off when they're in mid-sentence.
sure. I would be
That's-
open to 6:30, on the nights that we can do it. And I will say it's interesting. I was reading an article the other day and I forget where it was. It was Lexington. I think they were doing town administrator interviews and one of the candidates said, I'm going to limit meetings to 2 hours and people are really excited about that. So that concept is out there,
Yeah,
for better or for worse.
I mean, the days of 11 o'clock at night are over. That's definitely. Even the school committee now doesn't meet that long, but they used to.
Yeah.
I don't have other things for tonight.
No, just thank you again, DA, appreciate it. Let me know when it's up and I'll push it and then I'll get it around town. I will be taping this to the front door.
We
So-
just got the town report up today and the final warrant will be up tomorrow. So then we'll be able to run with that.
Okay, so seeing as we have no executive session and nothing for board questions on the agendas, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And seconded.
All in favor? Aye.